Welcome to the Open House podcast site. Available at openhouseonline.com.au.
Yes, on our human condition segment each week. At the moment, we're on a month-long pursuit of happiness with our resident clinical psychologist, Lyn Worsley. Last week, we looked at how having a meaning and purpose in life contributes to our happiness. Tonight, gratitude and its role in helping us to be happy. Lyn, more than ever before, I probably should say I'm grateful for you being here with us tonight.
Thank you, Lee.
I feel better already. On the surface of it, it might seem an unusual link, gratitude with happiness. Take us through what the link is then.
Yeah, okay. When we look at gratitude, the attitude of gratitude is really like a positive emotion. They regard it as the ultimate positive emotion that gives a sense of well-being and belonging. But if we also look at gratitude, it's also a response, usually to something that's positive from other people or from receiving something from others or outside influences. So it's a response to something good in our lives, and an attitude of gratitude, which is a bit hard to say, I'd like to say.
You do it well at this late stage of the evening.
Yes. But it also means that we have an active response to something positive that comes to us. So we're more open to sort of good experiences, and as a consequence of that, we end up having good memories that file in our brain because we're actively looking for those things. And there's actually been studies showing that if you have an attitude of gratitude...
Well done.
I did well. It changes the neural pathways in the brain and actually makes you more selective to positive emotions. So you can actually get more.
A physical process.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. It's also another way of being mindful. Now, in psychology, we've got this big buzzword at the moment called mindfulness.
Okay.
It's, we just go through these phases. And it basically means that the more that you sit with something quietly and listen and take in the here and now, the more likelihood is that you can get rid of all of that sort of planning and that manic sort of stuff that we've got going on.
I'll remember that.
Yes. Now, the other thing that happens is that happy people sleep well. And when you actually look at the studies of gratefulness, when people have a sense of gratefulness before sleep, they actually sleep better.
It's interesting.
So it could be that when you have an attitude of gratitude, well done, Lyn, is that you actually sleep better and have a better time during the day. So that contributes to your happiness.
And I suppose that feeds itself as well.
Absolutely.
More sleep, the better you feel.
Yes, exactly. And also our health. There's been other studies showed that if people have an attitude of gratitude, they have a much healthier body and they get better quicker.
Okay. I take it that gratitude is a different thing and perhaps even a bigger help to us than just being positive, having a positive mindset, helpful though that is.
Yes, although I think we've got to be really careful not to get caught up between being positive and being optimistic. Happiness has been linked with optimism, not positive. But you can actually be positive and still be pessimistic. So I could talk to you about that for about another whole hour.
Okay.
However...
We'll do that again.
We will. But if you're going to look at optimistic thinking, there are some pretty characteristic thinking patterns that are associated with optimistic thinking. One of those is that people find evidence to support what's happening. And when you have an attitude that is looking towards being thankful, that was another way of saying attitude to gratitude, was that you actually find evidence for the good things that are happening around you, and that's part of that optimism.
Yeah.
It also means that you start looking to having action. And one of the things that we find in psychology is that you can have insight into all sorts of things, but until you're ready to change your behaviour, there's no point of it. So we need to start looking at ways of having an action, and being grateful and being thankful is actually an action.
Not just a thought.
It's not just a thought. Okay. It's actually an action. The other area that you can look at how it is different to just being positive, it means that too that you can start having a receiving end of your kindness. So if you actually take an attitude that's thankful, you start to see that you start being more kind to other people, and they in turn are kinder to you. So it's sort of a reciprocity that comes across with being thankful.
You're using all the big words tonight.
I am. I'm doing really well.
And you're doing it.
Now, there's something really interestingly I wanted to tell you about this one. Now, this is a study that was done, and I don't usually like gender studies because I tend to think they're a little bit cultural. However, there was a study that was done that looked at the value of gratitude amongst different populations. And it appears that men and women, for example, don't have the same experience of gratitude.
Okay.
And that women may have a higher trait gratitude, that is, they're naturally more grateful. But men, on the other hand, recognise that when they've received a gift of some sort, it may make them feel a bit more indebted to the giver.
That's interesting.
Which might
says a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, it may actually mean that sometimes why women who do kind things for a man don't necessarily get the reciprocal response that they want. And they did another study looking just at school-age populations, and the girls tended to be more grateful for interpersonal relationships, and the boys tended to be more grateful for their material possessions. Now, that can also be to do with the age and stage of the boys and girls because they develop at different stages. But it opens up a bit of interest because there's been observed that some people have a sense of indebtedness when they're given something. So further on from that, if you have a sense of indebtedness when you feel as some kindness has been given to you, it might actually stop you having a sense of gratitude.
I'm sure that probably does, yes.
Because you don't want to feel guilty or you don't want to feel obligated. So that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, says a lot. I mean, yet again, girls and boys are different. Who's surprised at that?
Yes.
Here's an interesting question, though. People with Christian faith, still human, with every human foible, but should they generally be more grateful, do you think?
Well, I think that links with one of those studies, because if we really look at what the Christian faith says, it is an act of gratitude in response to grace. God has given us a graceful gift in Jesus. So there's no obligations with that. There's no strings attached. We're not indebted. However, we should be able to receive that gift without having to feel like we have to do things for him.
Okay. What about when I don't feel grateful?
Right, when you don't feel
I'm only
grateful.
human, Lyn.
Never. Well, there's some things that we can do. And most of us don't feel grateful most of the time. So it's actually putting on a sense of gratefulness. And if you put on a sense of gratefulness, you can do a few exercises. One of them is to actually write a gratitude journal. And writing a gratitude journal is actually actively writing down things at a regular time of the day of things that you're grateful for. The other thing you can do is write a letter of gratitude to someone and either deliver it in person or tell that person about your gratefulness for them.
Okay.
Another one is counting your kindnesses. And I thought this was really interesting, and I like to do this from time to time, is actually count how many times you are kind to somebody yourself. And when you start doing that, you up the score a bit by being more kind to people, and you actually look for people that you want to be kind for, and it's easier. So it actually sets up a really good relationship cycle.
Yeah. A lot of it is continuing to feed into the next kind of phase, and it's a circular kind of thing. Can I run you through a bit of an exercise? If I've come to you struggling with my mood or my outlook on life, my attitude, I should be more happy with the life I have. How would you help me, do you think?
Okay, I think if you came to see me today, I'd probably put you through an exercise. And one of the exercises would be to write a gratitude letter. And the way you write a gratitude letter is in 3 parts. So let's take the listeners through this. Okay, just think about somebody that you really admire, somebody that you have seen in your life, somebody who you have either noticed, even if you don't know them personally, but maybe that you've watched them and you admired them. And write down all the things that you are thankful for them. Is it their wit? Is it how they look? Is it how they've carried themselves? The other thing is to actually then take another step, and write down what it is you've learned from those things that you're grateful for. What lessons have you learned in that process? And that's a number of steps you could put through. The last part is then, what are you going to do about it?
Yes.
So write down your action. Because I have learned this from you, I am now going to take this into another part of my life. Now, writing that exercise is actually such a helpful thing. And you could give it to the person if you want to. If you don't, it actually leaves a wonderful legacy for you.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Lyn, as always in our Human Condition, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lee.
Check you next week.
We hope you enjoyed this Open House podcast, thanks to Christian Super and Real World Technology. To hear more from Open House, visit openhouseonline.com.au.